you're joining us for the first time, the Liberian Dream is the show where we talk about what Liberia should look like that encompasses the visions, the aspirations, and dreams of all Liberians, and not just certain Liberians. Whether you are in Logatuo, whether you are in Bogonima, whether you are in Palipoken or Joploken, or whether you are in Happer, whether you are in Grangida or Zwedru, or whether you are in Kipamas, or whether you are in Cape Mount, or Bomi, or Bapolu, wherever you are, that the Liberian dream should be the envisioning of a country that we all feel a valuable part of, that we can contribute to. So today we're looking at a fundamental document that is supposed to be representative of all of us combined as Liberians, the Liberian Constitution. And I would begin by making the argument that at no time in the history of the Republic of Liberia that the Constitution has ever been written in the best interest of all Liberians. At no time since the inception of independence from 1847 to 2021, at no time has the Constitution of Liberia been written in the best interest of all Liberians. I would argue that it has always been written to protect the interests of an elite few. And we can argue who that elite was at any time in history. In 1847, and that is also consistent with the fact that at no time has Liberian citizenship been experienced from a place of inclusion. It has always been experienced from a place of exclusion. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. In 1847, when the Declaration of Independence was crafted and delivered, it was meant and designed to protect the interest or seek the interest of an elite few, around 300 family or 300 families, right? Let's look at it. You remember that to vote in Liberia, you needed to have real property, whatever that was. So you come to a country where the notion and concept of property was not based on individual ownership. And you draft a law and you draft citizenship based on the ownership of what you define as the ownership of real property. Do you remember at one point when women were not allowed to vote in the Republic of Liberia? You remember that at one point? So 1847 was the first miscarriage of justice. 1847 was the beginning of the corruption of what is today the Republic of Liberia. And this will explain why up to 2021, we are still struggling with a lot of issues. Fast forward from 1847 to 1980, that constitution was always tinkered with and fooled around with and readjusted depending on what the pressures of the day were. But however, the central pillar of it remained to protect the interests of the class of elites that was in existence at the time. Let's fast forward to 1980, when the military coup occurred in the name of liberating the Liberian people, majority of the population, from the suppression, from the corruption, from the injustice of what was the true wing party between 1847 and 1980, right? On all fronts, whether it was economic or political or social, religious, you name it. And there was no doubt about the corruption and suppression and injustice that was rampant in what was then the Republic of Liberia. But here's what happened. These people came to do what they call liberation without an iota of understanding of what needed to be done to set up a nation that would have been in the best interest of the majority. So they were trying to undo something that they felt was wrong, but had no clue of what to do to make it right. I'll say that again. Our brothers and sisters, great-grandfathers, ancestors, whatever you call them at the time in 1980, has staged a fight to overthrow the then government, to deal with the injustice, to deal with the economic suppression, the political suppression, to deal with all of that. Except that there was one problem. And that problem was the fact that none of them has spent any time thinking through or understanding or learning the amount of work that needed to be done to then replace that, because you cannot just fight to remove something. And I will argue in 2021, we are witnessing some of the same problems. We have a bunch of people running around the place talking about they want to change and remove the government and they are the right people to be put there. When the truth is they have zero track record, zero training, zero understanding, and the worst experiences ever when it comes to setting up a nation that deals with the current realities of where we are. In fact, I will argue that most of our ancestors then who led the overthrow of the Talbot government in 1980 were still living in the 1920s and 1930s. We're still living in the realities of the 1940s and the 1950s. They did not understand that the society had evolved to a place that, yes, there was a need to get rid of the economic suppression and the injustice. But they did not realize that the solutions that they were still fighting over from the 40s and the 50s were no longer relevant in the 1980s because the realities were quite different. So let's have a deeper conversation about this. In 1980, when the government was overthrown, we decided to set up a new system. And when we set up a new system, I guess a lot of people did not realize that this system was being set up in the interest of a new class of elite people as well at the same time. So we were trying to get rid of one class of elite people and trying to put in place another group of elitists that were supposed to try and design a state in their best interest at the time. And that best interest was not reflective of the best interest of everybody. It was reflective of the 10% or 20%, or some would even argue less than that number of the population, and also dealing with the situation at the time. So let's get to where it came from. And somebody said the land ownership clause was borrowed from the US Constitution. The entire Constitution was borrowed. All right. We never gave ourselves the opportunity to be at a place where we were writing our own or where we were modeling our own, even though we needed to look at others as an example. We decided to basically photocopy something that we did not understand and make it our own and pretend as if we were the one who created it originally. And that wasn't true. And because that wasn't true, it was meant to fall apart. It was never going to last. So guess what happened in 1980? The government of Liberia was overthrown. And once it was overthrown, a new group of elitists emerged, right? They set themselves up, got to power, and then started to look at each other with no clue or idea of what they needed to do to move forward. There was zero idea. They didn't have a clue. They didn't have the thought process about it. So when the reality dawned on them, in less than 9 months, the best they could do was to turn on each other. And we saw they started to execute each other, kill each other, fight each other. Simply because everybody had to blame the other person for why things were not going the way they thought it should. So what did they do? They set up to write a new constitution. In their argument, they were writing a new constitution to represent the majority of the country because the old constitution was corrupt, was unfair, was written in the interest of a few people, except that they did the exact same thing they were accusing the other people of. The exact same thing. They took the Constitution, went into it, whatever they could insert to protect themselves, whatever they could insert to cement their power, they did. So in the 1986 Constitution, I'll read something to you that might shock you, that you may not be aware of. In Article 97, Article 97 in the 1986 Constitution, which is what we're still using today, prohibits any court from questioning the validity of the actions taken by the PRC. So the murders, the summary executions, all of the things you can name that went on, they're inserted in the Constitution in Article 97 that no court has the ability or the authority to question any of the validity of the actions that the People's Redemption Council took. That included no court has the ability to bring charges against any member of the PRC for crimes they were about to commit, for crimes they were committing, including the overthrow of a legitimate government, right? No court had the ability to question their repeal of the 1847 Constitution. So they decided to repeal the 1847 Constitution, but then they argued that no court had the ability to question that repeal. that no court had the ability to question the establishment of the PRC. By the way, this is in your Constitution, Article 97. You can Google it. It's all on the internet. You don't even need to take too long to check it out. Many of you may not be aware. They also inserted in the Constitution that the imposition of criminal penalties or the confiscation of properties by the PRC could not be allowed. No court had the ability to question the PRC for imposing criminal penalties or confiscating people's private property during their term, right? So this is what we call today the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. I'm only citing this as one example. There are many other examples when you go through the Constitution of Liberia, which makes it a corrupt document. And that is the reason why, if we should address the issues as to what is required today for the current realities of Liberia, a good place to begin will be addressing the corruption of the Liberian Constitution. I argue all of the time, and I tell people that is the most serious place to begin if you want to have a serious conversation. However, today, let me tell you what is even more painful and what is even more embarrassing. Most of the people, some of the people who were signatories to that Constitution in 1986, who were put in a building surrounded by men with AK-47s and told, you better do what you were told to do or else, are still alive today. But they walk around and boast of the fact that they are the signatories of the 1986 Constitution, and it is a prestigious thing to have been a part of it. But they don't have the courage to come up and help people understand that it was a fraudulent document, to admit that they were under extreme duress and had no choice but to do what they were told, and urging us to go back and look into that document. In fact, change it, I'll argue. You just change the whole thing. There's no point to even be arguing about what should be inserted and what should be removed. I will argue that you just change the entire thing because it was fundamentally flawed to begin with, and building on a foundation every day is just enhancing and changing how flawed it is. You wouldn't change the bigger issues without getting down to the nitty-gritty of what the realities are. So let's face it, it is where it is, and you can admit it or not. It's a difficult thing too, but it is a corrupt and a flawed document that needs to be changed to reflect the realities. In my opinion, it's long overdue, that reflect the actual realities of what we're looking at today, or else we will continue to come right back to why things don't work. People asking Liberia, oh, why systems don't work? Why this thing don't work? Why that thing don't work? It's practical why systems don't work. They don't work simply because they were designed on a flawed foundation. So no matter how you try to clean it up and fix it and make it look somehow, you're wasting your time. It is a corrupt document. We've corrupted the very document that's supposed to be the one that everybody runs to. We've corrupted the very document that's supposed to be the one that protects everybody if you are a Liberian. We've corrupted it. So it's difficult to see actions coming out of that document that would not be as corrupt as the document itself. And this includes government implementing their functions. Imagine the government trying to implement a corrupt constitution. Do you expect those actions to not be full of corruption? They will be full of corruption because the Constitution is flawed and is corrupt. So that's one point. Let me come to the second point as to why the Constitution is a corrupt document. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to denigrate it. I'm just saying it because it is what it is. And we need to admit it and we need to change it. This is where I think Liberian scholars, and I will argue those that are still alive and still around, who were signatories to the Liberian Constitution, this is the time that we need to start asking them serious questions. People who know the details about what happened. The Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer, the Councillor Pierre Brambu. These are the people who were around. These are the people who are knowledgeable. Some of them are even signatories to the Constitution. They need to answer some serious questions about why we are where we are. So the 1986 Constitution basically decided that all members of the People's Redemption Council are above the law. And it still is today. That's not a thing of the past. It still is enshrined in our Constitution. So members of the People's Redemption Council are super citizens above everybody else. There are actions of theirs that no court is authorized to question as per the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. But our leaders preside over this and ask us with straight face to defend it. They ask us with straight face to abide by a corrupt document that they don't have the courage to admit and stand up and say, we need to correct this document because we cannot be expected to make good decisions out of a bad document. It is not possible. It is not possible. Argue all you want, say all you want. It is the reality. Well, let's ask them today, instead of them boasting around and us lifting them up and putting them on pedestals, let's ask them to give us the answers to these very important questions. Because we believe there are a lot of things to be corrected, and one of them is the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. Let me go to the second thing. Liberia has two parallel legal systems, and both of them fulfill an important role. We have something called the customary law. So customary authorities are our traditional laws that are not written in the Constitution as is, but the Constitution actually recognizes it from the very beginning in the first 5 articles of our Constitution. It recognizes what it calls customary laws, even though and acknowledges that those laws are not written as enshrined in the Constitution, but they are legal. So these traditional or customary authorities, as they call them, are responsible for keeping the peace in rural areas and absorbing a daily caseload of minor grievances that when taken together will swamp any court system you have in the Republic of Liberia, right? So let's face it, those of you who despise our customary laws, despise our cultures, despise our traditions, breaking news for you, customary laws are legal as enshrined, as referenced in the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. This is not Leo Johnson saying it. So you begin to understand how corrupt the Constitution of Liberia is, that it says customary laws are legal, but it refuses to write them and identify what they are. It decided to leave them open to anyone's interpretation. This is how corrupt our Constitution is. It says customary laws are important and legal, but at the Louis Arthur Graham School of Law, customary law is an elective course. That means it's optional. So we are training lawyers who know nothing, who can decide whether they want to study customary law or not. So they know nothing about customary law, but you say it is a part of our legal system. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Liberians, the corruption of the Liberian Constitution, that is the reason why we don't seem to get anything right. Every decision made by governments, whether in good faith or bad faith, has always had negative consequences on our nation. Because the Constitution itself, the fundamental laws by which we should all be abiding, there are citizens that were placed above the law. There are multiple references of corruption in the law to protect corruption and corrupt practices. So let's face it, let's call a spade a spade. You can argue all you want. Unless we change the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia to represent the genuine interests and be updated to be responsive to the emerging needs and current realities of the Republic of Liberia, you're wasting your time. No government is able to make better decisions based on the Liberian Constitution and the corruption of it thereof. I would argue that. They can try their best, but the fundamental underpinnings of what gave them the authority to make those decisions are corrupt. And you wonder why your legislature is the way it is? Let me give you the answer. Your legislature has remained a corrupt institution from the day it was established to 2021 because the document upon which it relies is corrupt. And that corruption benefits them individually. So as a result of that, they have no interest in changing the corruption of the Liberian Constitution, but presiding over the corrupt document because it gives them the ability to be corrupt and corrupt the state for their personal gains. I'm sorry. I'm just saying as I see it. We will read them. No longer those days where these documents were sacred documents that you people hid. We will read them as they are available. We will give our opinions on them, and we'll wait for you to correct us, those of you who may know more than we do. So at the same time, the traditional authorities have neither the capacity nor the legal mandate to address serious crimes of violence. So the Constitution says customary laws are legal. The Constitution says Liberia has a dual legal system, a parallel legal system, customary law and our official laws as written in the Constitution, on the books as written. Unwritten laws and written laws, the Constitution said both of them are legal, except that the Constitution will not outline what those customary laws are. Except that the Constitution itself would develop a legal training system that actually marginalizes the practice of customary law, but then in the same time says it is legal. There's only one reason I can think of why they would have done that, because they were afraid that if you empower the traditional people, if you empower them to the point where they have the rightful authorities to see right and wrong, where they have the ability to enforce their traditions, to practice it, and what is wrong, to continue to evolve it, then this elite system of protecting a small class of people would have been non-existent, because the elite class has always been a minority, 10, 15%. So if you had to pit 10, 15% of the population against 85%, you know what the outcome will be. So as a result, they had to marginalize, suppress customary law, but their fear of saying it was illegal would have had the same backlash. So they decided to say it is legal. We will say illegal, but we're not ready anyway. Nobody knows what it is. We will say it is legal, but the whole legal system, training system, will make sure it's not even a thing that anybody will go waste their time on. They decided that we will say illegal just so people can get vests, but we will strip them of any resources required to do anything serious. So you go up interior, you see our traditional bushes, our traditional clans, our traditional palaces built with thatch and mud. They've never seen electricity nor clean drinking water. Our chiefs, some of our traditional chiefs, don't have slippers to wear. Right? This stuff is deep. The Constitution itself is corrupt. It's a corrupt document. It is a corrupt document. So let's face it, right? Those are the two reasons of many. I encourage you to read the Liberian Constitution for yourself. It is a corrupt document. It was meant for corruption from 1847 to 1986. And then 1986, people decided that corruption was the new age of corruption. So they decided again to redraft or draft a newer document to protect their own corruption, not to protect the interests of the country, not to protect the interests of the citizens of the country, not to provide practical and fair laws that will have an equal impact on everybody at the same time. No, it was meant to protect the corrupt interests of an elite few, thereby rendering the document itself corrupt. That is what I say. That is what I have found. I'm waiting for a different argument. And we will not build Liberia. The Liberian dream argues that we should on earth expose this and then make a push to change it. Because we want a country where the little child growing up in Banga, where the young girl growing up in Zogoi, where the young boy growing up in Happer, where the young girl growing up in Joploken, where the old man in Bogonima, where the papa in Rabosport, where the old man in Zwedru, in Spain, all of them should be able to understand their value to their country and realize that their interest is also protected as it relates to the common good of their country. That's what I gotta say. You know what? Let's take some of our comments. Let's see some of the reactions from you, our viewers, before we go any deeper. Maybe we can look at some of our comments here. Let's see. And if you have questions today, we will not be taking calls. So you can put your questions in the comments. I will respond to them. Or if you have comments or feedback, you can put it in the comment section and I'll respond to them. But let's take some of the comments. Jimmy Eastman says, the 1986 Constitution put the PRC above the law. But the question is, why they failed to make a change during a constitutional review under the Ellen administration. Jimmy, I agree with your point, but this question is bigger than Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's administration. Why are we not paying attention to it? The citizens of the country. Why have we gotten ourselves engrossed in all type of stupid arguments around the place and neglecting the fundamental arguments that we be having? I haven't heard any section of our population addressing or calling for this issue. It has been ignored. Or I hear our people saying, let's defend the Constitution. Which Constitution? The corrupt one? No. So it's bigger than even Ellen Johnson's relief. And the hypocrisy of the leaders themselves, they are benefiting from the corruption of the Constitution. So why were they when the citizens don't seem to care? So it's time to enlighten and conscientize our people to focus on where the real argument should be and not on the little things here and there. But let's continue. Jimmy Eastman said the land ownership clause was borrowed from the U.S. The whole Constitution was borrowed from the U.S. and then manipulated to be made even more corrupt than the original one that they borrowed, because the U.S. Constitution was originally corrupt and they have kept changing it. Moses Thomas, we just need to come together, work together, pray together, share together, put Liberia first and many more. My brother, we do not need to even come together. We all need to do our part within our means. You put two people in a room, you get 5 opinions. So this whole illusion of coming together, you're wasting your time. There is no country in the world that I know where the people all are together. No, they all have differing opinions on how the country should be run. But the common interest is that their country should be made better for all of them, and they all do their part within their means. So we all not come together that we need Liberia. Let's not wait for anything else. Let's work. Flomo 8700 says the Constitution should be taught in high school. Before it be taught in high school, my brother, let's address the corruption of it first. But I agree with you. It should not just be taught in high school. It should be taught at all levels of education. And Flomo 8700 says Liberians are lazy in reading. I disagree with you that Liberians are lazy in reading. Our people don't write anything for us to read. What do they write? The Constitution that we are arguing about today, to even find copies in Liberia, it is practically impossible. But they write it in English too, so they marginalize all our people then from being able to actually read it. Noel Brown. As Liberians are getting ready for 2023, the people that are so gun-ho behind those corrupt politicians, I believe that this country will go back into war again. Sad but true. Noah Brown, we hope to not go back into war. None of us want to go back there. That is the reason why some of us who will be doing other things are sitting on here and providing pathways that we can change the trajectory of history. We have an opportunity to not let it repeat itself. So we will fight and we will die fighting. Let's die fighting than sitting there and say, let's wait for it to go to war again. No, we will not. River says, Pro say, how did Matera Nipo get a 5,000-pound canoe into a slave ship? My brother, I'll lead that one with the Toto story people there. All right, let's stick to our argument here. Al Blamo says, because Liberia keep running to their white daddy, cannot do for themselves. My brother, no white daddy been here now. Those of us who Liberians that say we are educated and everything, where daddy will not run into anymore. That our own people running the affairs. Y'all leave America alone. America tired with us. And you're not noticing yet? Y'all pay attention. America said tired with us. That America detected that Prince Johnson be elected. Y'all have me. That America detected that George Bush and former warlords be elected. No, it's not them. It is us. Y'all leave America. Y'all ask your people then for it. What can do the simple things? Kopa Kwemin says, you make so much sense, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Kopa. Y'all leave America all of that thing here. America tired with us. The people now try. They try to get to do it in their own interest. Everything the people gave us, we squandered it. The people gave us money, we spoil it. They gave us power, we kill each other. You say America? Okay, America get their own to do that. Not America sitting in the legislature. Not America I see voting on laws every day. That not America. No, that Darius DeLong, that Prince Johnson, that Vanny Sherman, that John Blikanga Lawrence, that Karas Gray, that those people then too that are white daddy there, or those people then came from Pluto. Are they aliens? That Boto Cannon there, that Edwin Snow there. The same people you can be lecturing with whole day, you're taking pictures with you to their houses, you're in their inboxes, you're chat on WhatsApp, you call them your friends, you're very good friends. But then you come and cry about the nation. No, we will no longer be taking the hypocrisy. We will say the Constitution of Liberia is corrupt. And that is the reason why it only seems to be benefiting majority of the corrupt people in the country. Don't you see the alignment? That the Constitution only seems to serve the interests of the most corrupt of our country? Can't you see? Ablamo said, Lord, no, they're not, because they are benefiting from Liberia. Can't you see that children being raped? Benedict Phillips says, thank you, my brother. We need to hear this every day. Thank you, Benedict. Can't you see that children being raped in Liberia cannot get justice? Can't you see that innocent people being murdered cannot get justice? Can't you see that? Can't you see that up to 75 to 80% of our country cannot get justice because justice is too expensive? Can't you see that justice is for sale? Can't you see that justice is for the most affluent? It's only for those who have? Can't you see it? Where you think that is coming from? Can't you see that it's directly correlated with the corruption of the Liberian constitution? Can't you see that? How is that not obvious? How is that not obvious? Can't you see the flagrant violation of rules and simple decency and laws? Can't you see that your constitution says 90 days after elections there should be by-elections? But we are still waiting. Jimmy Eastman said, ironically, Leo, even though the constitution was borrowed from the United States, but the central theme of the U.S. Constitution was designed for fighting corruption. My brother, is the irony of the whole thing. It's the irony of borrowing things that you don't understand, do not mean. Can't you correlate this? Can you correlate that it is impossible to implement the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia? It is corrupt. Anything that is built on falsehood, on deceit, on lies, on dishonesty, it's not possible to make it true later. If it was a lie from the beginning, let me tell you, they say when you say one lie, every other thing after, to defend that one lie, you got to say 300 more lies. So from the day that this deceptive document was put into practice called a constitution, every other thing that has been done to defend it is a lie, is corrupt. So how can any government, President, we are government, how can it not be corrupt when the fundamental document it has to rely on is corrupt? Please help me. Tell me, how would a government not be corrupt when the very document that it has to rely on to govern is a corrupt document? So if that document is corrupt, anything the government is doing after that itself is corrupt. Thus the justice system, thus the security system, thus the health system, thus the education system. You think these things are happening just by coincidence? You think the reason why it's so difficult to fix it is because there aren't smart people who have ideas though? There are. But the fundamental reliance that they have is in and of itself corrupt. So corrupt to the point that it is even impossible to build any system on it. I mean, you can argue. If you have a different point, please let me know. And I would love to actually hear any differing opinion on this. That is the reason why the only way the True Win Party could have managed to keep that going was to suppress people, marginalize people, alienate people, because the document was corrupt. Your reliance is corrupt. So there is no way any government in Liberia will be able to function properly without changing the constitution. You will have to engage in corrupt practices because the constitution is corrupt. You have to marginalize people, the least. You have to marginalize the less privileged in our population because that is what the government called for. You have to commercialize justice because the constitution is designed to have it done that way. You have to protect an elite class of people who can never be brought to book by the same laws that you choose to actually defend. Charles Russell say, America took most of lawmakers to meet with U.S. Congress men and women for tutoring, and they came back with the same corrupt behavior. But brother, you leave America. Oh, I'm not here for America. Knock yourself out for America. I'm talking about Liberia. I got no fish to fry in the American people business. They can do their thing. The American people have managed to make their country work for themselves to the point where refugee, poor Liberian men can come and get recourse somehow. At least they've managed to do something with that. So you're let them deal with their issues. Let's talk the Liberian issue here. America does not have customary laws and the legal justice system. Liberia has. So let's deal with that. Let's focus on our own. Because they play, they quit to run to other people that the same problem in 1847, they told the people constitution, came to Liberia, wherever they had a republic, wherever they had the United States of America, they erased it and they inserted Republic of Liberia and then pretended like it was their geniuses. They sat overnight and wrote this thing. They lied to us. And then 1986. So I was saying, let me go back to my point I was making, in fact. I was saying, the Constitution in 1847 was corrupt. So the True Win Party had to introduce these draconian practices, these wicked practices, executing people, suppressing people, marginalizing people, because there was no way to stay true to a corrupt document without setting corrupt systems. That's the reason why one of them after the other had to just do the same. 1986 came, our second group of corrupt people came, and according to them, they were fighting in the name of justice and liberation and freedom, took the constitution, changed it, and corrupted it even deeper to protect their own corruption because they felt it was their turn. They felt the True Win Party suppressed people for over 100 years. So when they talk about, they felt that was their time. And their time did not mean their time for the entire Republic of Liberia. They felt they needed to punish those who benefited from the True Win Party, or also punish the majority of the population for their own personal gains. So they took another corrupt document and passed it under the barrels of the gun and call it a what? Constitution. And then we all pass around today and say we must defend it. So as a result of that, Samuel Doe and the rest of them, it did not take long. They too had to introduce draconian practices to maintain their corruption. Maintaining corruption is so difficult. It's a complicated process. So eventually they had to all resort to the same violence against their own people. They had to do the exact same things that they accused the people that they executed for. Think about the irony of it. You came and executed people. You murdered people in the name of corruption. You came and killed people for marginalizing you and others. You came and killed people for stealing. And then you talk over 9 months later, you decided, you know what? The time to set up my own city, you know what? To put them who cared about their time, but now our time we get to steal too. And then you started to do worse than what they did. It is the reality. Let's say it. It is the truth. Let's say it. And today in 2021, our leaders still continue to lie to us. They still continue to deceive our young people. And then they call themselves educated people. Bunch of people who went to school, memorized and score letter grades, calling themselves educated people. We no longer got any respect for your letter grades that has no substance behind it. Bunch of people who say they're educated, but they can only show their educational prowess when they come to other people's country. They're not able to demonstrate it in their own country, even though they have been given multiple opportunities in government. They have been given multiple opportunities in power. They are yet to show us one thing they were able to accomplish. But all day they pass around the place. We no longer got respect for your letter grades with no such substance. We no longer got respect for your summa cum laude with no substance. We no longer got respect for your magna cum laude with no substance. Take it to the school where you got it from. Until you can show us the substance of your letter grades, they are meaningless and worthless to the long-term viability of our country. We need people who can show us, not tell us. We need people who can demonstrate it to us, not recite it in big terms and terminologies that only 10% of our population can understand. We are tired with your visions on paper. We need people who are the vision bearers, the vision carriers, and the implementors. We're tired. Y'all leave us alone. We don't want no more white papers. Keep your white papers. We got enough on the shelves already that the next 100 years we will not be able to exhaust. So stop writing more. Stop proving your academic geniuses in the words that you can speak and the dexterity of your vocabulary and your oratory skills. We are tired with it. Show us. Help us know how can we be able to produce rice so that we don't depend on rice from India. Then we will respect your letter grades. Show us. How we can produce enough rare oil on our own market. Show us how we can transport agricultural produce from Lofakante to Monrovia. Show us how we can manage to build better roads in a small country like Liberia. Please show us. Other than that, take your summa cum laude and magna cum laude and the man smart, take it to America, Britain, wherever else you got it from, carry it back there. They got more use for it there than we do. You are meaningless to us. You are meaningless to us. Excuse me. Let's dig deeper. I can name them to you. All your most educated people, you know the funny thing about it? All of them argue that the only way they can do anything for the Republic of Liberia is when they are in government. Nelson Mandela was not in government, my friends. When he had the greatest impact on the Republic of South Africa. In fact, it was as a result of his exploits on the Republic of South Africa that he eventually made it to the presidency. On his records, not on his promises. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was not in government, my friends. Never made it to government, never was in government. But there is nobody else you can name to me that have had the greatest impact on the history and trajectory of the United States of America, the greatest country on earth, than Dr. Martin Luther King. He was a pastor. Let me break it down for you. Y'all who say, oh, one man can change the country. Oh, it's not possible. You can't change the country until you change government. Dr. Martin Luther King was not fighting to change government. He was a full-time pastor, remained one until he died. And he changed not just the trajectory of one country. He changed the trajectory of the world. What's wrong with you people? The whole government thing. Whole day, you people are magicians. You can solve Liberia's problem, but we got to get you power first. What kind of problem is that? You know what would have happened if Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have said, the civil rights movement in here, the thing will not work for until you're maybe minister or president of the United States for it, then I will change it. You know what would have happened if Nelson Mandela would have said, until we take power, we cannot do much about the situation in South Africa. So let's just focus on the government first. Let's focus on getting power. Whole day in Liberia, you're presiding over corrupt documents. Me, I tell you, I got no respect for people who don't want to admit this. Call their names. What are their legacies in Liberia? And they have the audacity to be passing around boasting that this corrupt 1986 constitution is their legacy. Can you imagine in 2021? And then those of you who come out to say, oh, it's impossible to change the whole constitution. We just got to be making amendments and be changing it. That is the biggest lie ever told. Kenya, about 11 years ago, changed its entire constitution because the constitution they had was the constitution that was left from the British colonization period. And they decided that that was not good enough. And they changed their entire, I said they made amendments. I said they changed the constitution. So where play you come from? Well, time to campaign, you can find money. Or even the opposition, both the opposition and the government. Time to campaign, for some reason, magically, you can just produce money. But to do anything serious in a country, there's no money. Time to do stupidity, everybody, okay, we all might get in arms. But time to talk about the seriousness of where our country should go, then no, you can't do much without the government leading. The government must provide leadership. What government? The same government that is relying on a corrupt document that is the constitution is the same government you are relying on for solutions. I wonder what would have happened if Nelson Mandela would have relied on the government. I wonder what would have happened if Dr. Martin Luther King would have relied on the document, on the government. I wonder where we would have been today. I wonder what the state of the world would have looked like. I wonder. I only wonder what would have happened when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King would have had to rely on the government, or if Mahatma Gandhi would have had to rely on the government. I wonder what would have happened. But let's take more reactions here. Let's take more of our comments so we can get you involved in the constitution. In the conversation, Al Blamo says, because the system is corrupt, don't mean you are. No system is corrupt. The constitution, what they call system? Systems are the outcome of the fundamental documents. The constitution is corrupt. If the system is corrupt, how will you not be corrupt when you have to implement the system? Huh? Johnson Gonkanu say our capital, our towns, villages, rivers, and streets are named after these corrupt people. As a result, our identity is lost. Yeah, because it's based on the corrupt document, the Constitution. Mama Tutu say, wow. Okay, I'm not sure, Mama Tutu, what you're trying to express there, but welcome. Imanta Flomo said the major reason why we are suffering is because we have largest uneducated lawmakers and rebel leaders. How are now we governing us? That's not true. Nobody, the governance does not equate to Western education. My people, let's correct this point. Those of y'all who not go to Western school, or us who not go to Western school, learn English and learn BB words and graduate with someone at letter grade A, B, or C. That is not equivalent to good leadership. Some of the people you call uneducated have been some of the greatest leaders you can think about. Mother Teresa. And you can hear about Mother Teresa. How educated was Mother Teresa? Go and check. Jimmy Eastman says, the purpose of the Constitution has been a question of academic debate. Leo, what do you suggest should be the main purposes of the Liberian Constitution? Separation of powers and checks and balances, protection of individual rights and property, a national identity. What is the Constitution for? What a great question, Jimmy. What a great question. I think the Constitution itself, the concept of a Constitution needs to be evolved. to reflect current realities and emerging needs. The Constitution in of itself has to be the direct reflection, protection, and constitution of the national identity of a people. And under the subsections of that will automatically fall everything, the protections of right, checks and balances, right? Let me put it to you this way. Hey, your name Jimmy Eastman, as you are. You decided to build a family. You decided to build a house. The first thing that you worried about, isn't it the protection of the man, Jimmy Eastman, his legacy, his family, his house, everything about him, right? He protects his family. He protects who they are, what they stand for. Every other thing of going, sending your children to school, providing food for them, providing shelter for them, falls directly underneath that. We can no longer be writing constitutions based on the detections of what Western society came up with in their opinion, okay? That may work for them. We need to start writing constitution based on the dictates of Liberian society. That is the reason why it has to be reflective of the opinions, the views of everybody, of the majority of our population, and not an elite academic few. James N. Jensen says, the Constitution of Liberia, the supreme body of laws that govern the country, Liberia, is not corrupt. Again, it is not corrupt. What is true is that the Constitution has provision that may be inaccurate or could affect society, group of people, or institutions. The Constitution, like any other constitution of a country, has provisions for amendment and referendum. Hence, defects of the Constitution does not in any way, can in any way be described as corrupt, I think you mean, because it has given us governments continuously. The Constitution, you just said the amount of corruption in the Constitution. So let me ask you this. How can the Constitution not be corrupt when multiple provisions of the Constitution is corrupt or are corrupt? You didn't name one. You didn't just say, oh, there was only one defect in the Constitution. Okay, to what level there has to be a fundamental foundation of the Constitution is corrupt, not just a provision. The establishment that Liberia is a dual legal system, and then at the same time in writing a constitution to undermine customary law. This is not few provisions, multiple defects of the Constitution. If this was one or two things, I'll be like, okay, let's amend the one or two things. The Constitution was written to protect an elite corrupt few. What more do you need to make a document corrupt? You try to minimize them as defects, my brother. I disagree with you. Those are not minimum defects. John Conway says, we all know the Liberian Constitution is inherently flawed. But how do we change it? Any step-by-step action list you are suggesting? Yes. The first way to change it, let's follow the example of Kenya. Right? Let's follow the example of Kenya. We need to now start having an argument of pressuring our lawmakers to get a referendum authorizing changing of the Liberian Constitution. I did not say amendment. I said changing. In fact, there is a roadmap already for how that can be done. Right? There's a roadmap for that. Amos Sawyer then went through that first roadmap before 1986. There was a robust roadmap laid down in Banga before the 1986 Constitution that included visiting all of the various counties, consulting with all of the various sectors of our society, collecting their opinions and views to help inform what the new Constitution should be like and what should be in it. That process was completed. But when the coup occurred in 1986, Samuel Doe abandoned that process and decided to put them in a house around them and tell them what they were supposed to do. Madam Ellie Johnson Sirleaf, under the leadership of Gloria Musu-Scott, former Chief Justice, again, went through that same process of a constitutional review. But what did we do? We threw that into the dustbin because the harsh realities we learned required almost a fundamental change of the whole Constitution. So we were afraid to go there because we will not be able to protect our corruption anymore. So it was abandoned. So there are multiple roadmaps already. Am I saying they are perfect? No, we need to review them to make them current. They need to be looked at and see what more can be done to even enhance that roadmap in changing of the Liberian Constitution. It's not a rocket science. It's not as difficult as everybody thinks. It is a practical and needed step. Flomo Livingston say, if not all, most of our lawmakers, you mean do not even know the Constitution. How would they even try to change it? We don't need them to know it. That's why we who are able to read and write, we need to start reading it now to start educating our own mind and papa they ain't really monkey. Our own mind and papa they ain't bon country. But all of us say we quit. By the time we know how to do 1 + 1, 2, and we know how to make subject and verb agree, we run and count on Moreover and then call the people in the interior illiterate uneducated. Some of the people in the interior that never went to your academic school, that only went to the poor and the sender society, are way by far more educated than you are. They have maintained better societies than you have. Garbage control and collection is better up in the interior. Sanitation is better there. People can poo-poo and throw what is in. Okay? Organizing of society is better there. You have a constitution in a country that's only written in English. What's wrong with writing it in all languages? Or if you can't write all the languages, then record it. People can record whole encyclopedias now in audio. So don't tell me say that too much work. No, they got technology now to do it. What's wrong with the constitution having an audio in Kru, in Bassa, in Gio, in Pele, in Mano, in Kran, all of our languages, in VAD, you name them, all of them. What is stopping us from doing that part? Yeah, please help me understand. And we're asking for a roadmap. We already got a roadmap. But let's take more comments. Let's as we wrap up here gradually, let's take a few more comments here. Imantha Flomo said they are trying to fool us like they always do. I mean, they can fool us at this point, my brother. It's too late. We inside. Kopa Kwemi said, when will this amendment be made? When? Exactly. You said multiple defects. How long will it take you to deal with the multiple defects? Change the constitution. It is a corrupt document. It was brought about as a result of corruption. Mama Tutu said, Leo, a very smart talk today. Thank you, Mama. We try. We're just offering our opinion here. So let's keep it going. I mean, let's go through the few comments and then we can actually wrap up the afternoon. Patrick Davis says, why reference True Win Party in US if this present constitution is a product from a progressive? I reference the True Win Party in the US because they didn't want to introduce that roadmap of corruption to us. And then we just follow it and got more sophisticated in it. So you vest because I mentioned True Win Party in the US, you own your own. All of the things I mentioned, but they are facts. None of them are creations of my own. They are well documented. Benedict Phillips says, Leo, it's always refreshing to hear your analysis. Keep it up. Thank you, Benedict. Much appreciated. We're sorry today we're not able to take calls, so we'll just take everything through the comments. I promise you the next time we're here, we'll take calls, but today we'll have to take everything through the comments. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to repeat my argument. The corruption of the Liberian constitution is the greatest threat and danger to our society. And I promise you, the likelihood of producing a non-corrupt government is as slim as Jesus Christ coming to be president of Liberia, if we do not change the fundamental document that will dictate how our leaders behave. If we do not change the fundamental document that will make it more practical for us to implement it, because the Liberian constitution as it is impossible to implement. Zilch, you cannot implement it because you photocopy it from somewhere else. You cannot implement it because some of the things inside is not even consistent with the values and cultures of Liberia. And those of you who don't believe so, help me understand how you implemented the rule of law in Liberia. Jimmy Eastman said, do we have a legislature with the gumption and wherewithal to grapple with such complex tasks of correcting the constitution? They may be the mean stumbling block. Jimmy, I don't believe it is a complex task of correcting the constitution. In fact, I believe it's a practical task. So yes, we have a bunch of corrupt people in the legislature, but the only way we can make sure they change, if we want to, that by sharpening the argument to where it is. No longer we should be arguing about CPP, who became the standard bearer of CPP, who authored the document, who did not author the document, who's more corrupt party, a friend. They're arguing about who more corrupt. That's the type of argument we need to be having this now. Beg you, no. Johnson Gonganu said we need a national referendum to revamp our entire constitution so it reflects our national identity by changing the clauses in our constitution. We need to change the constitution, my people. Let's stop skirting around it with nice words. We need to change the constitution for these reasons. Number one, it is a corrupt document at its very foundation. Number two, it is impossible to implement. Number three, it's unable to give us a government that will be transparent and accountable because the laws that they have to rely on are already corrupt. So it better suits corrupt people. Let's have the conversation. You can disagree with me, but I'm not here for you to agree with me. I'm here to provoke the type of thought processes that should look at Liberia as a country that we should all envision, that not just reflects everybody, but everybody finds value within. What is the young girl in Grandida, or the young boy in Lofa, or the old man in Maryland, or the papa in Cape Ma, or the old man in Bomi, or in Bon County, or in Magibi County, or in Nimba County? And you can continue to, or in River G, or in River Cess, and we can continue to name them. All of them need to feel a part of this country. No longer will we be sitting now in Monrovia and just protecting the interests of the people in Monrovia alone. And not just the people in Monrovia, but the elite few. No longer we should be going down the path of just like bringing about new elites. 1847 brought their own elites. They did their own damage until 1980. 1980, the people who said the kingdom elaborate to created their own new elite. They did enough damage until 1989. 1989 brought their own new elites in Charles Taylor and his own cronies. The king did their own damage too. Then, after they did their own damage, 2 years later, Lloyd Rebel and Model then brought their own new elites. Did their own damage, all murdering thousands of innocent people in the process for a protection of the few of their interests. Did their own damage, benefited from the country's wealth, stole enough, murdered enough. Then they went to Accra for peace agreement. Then the politicians too came ahead and orchestrated the new type of elites also to benefit. And we saw Judith Bryan and Kim do their own corruption. Then we said we went to election. We elected a new class of elite that created a new class of elite under Madam Ellen Johnson's relief as well. We saw that. And then the left from their president, we are not counting today, create a new class of elite as well. Because the fundamental documents that they rely on gives them the opportunity to do that. That means say so. Change the corrupt constitution. Make it practical, make it a practical document that we can implement so that if the president go wrong, we don't need to be debating all over the country. The constitution is as plain and clear for the citizens to be able to understand that their president is not living up to the task. Change the constitution so the Supreme Court itself does not have to be confused in trying to give opinion on interpreting the constitution. Do you think it's by coincidence that when decisions go to the Supreme Court for interpretation, when it comes from there, the lawyers in the country can be more confused than before it went there? I mean, you ask it, the recent referendum that just ended, you saw that, come to Brandy Samoka case, and you see it, election disputes, and you see them, the Supreme Court interpretation of the law gets more confusing. The recent Jallo case on the issue of dual citizenship as well when he went to court. Look, the Constitution is so convoluted, corrupt, and just fundamentally flawed and wrong that even the Supreme Court confuses people more than they provide clarification whenever they have to provide an opinion. Name me how many times. There are more times that the Supreme Court have interpreted law. The Supreme Court is supposed to be the final arbiter of justice, the final interpreter of the law. But when they finish interpreting it, there are many more interpretations that are left. So sometimes one matter got to go to the Supreme Court 4, 5, 6, 7 different times for that clarification on the interpretation, or I'll call it this way, the interpretation of the interpretation. The Supreme Court got to spend multiple times on the interpretation of their interpretation. And lawyers are more confused than even the common people in the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's been another beautiful afternoon here of the Liberian dream. The corruption of the Liberian Constitution remains the greater threat to our pathway to good governance, to development, to a better country, to a country where all Liberians feel they belong, to a country where all Liberians feel that they can contribute, that they have a value proposition to belong. The greatest threat to patriotism. You wonder why, like people say, Liberians are not patriotic, why Liberians are not nationalistic, whatever you want to call it. Simple, because they don't feel they belong. Only 10% of the country feel they belong. So the 10% who feel they belong, they are the ones always asking the question why they are afraid they're not patriotic and nationalistic. Sorry. Only 10% of y'all belong. So the majority of the country do not feel they belong. Even people who never left Liberia cannot feel a strong sense of belonging to their own country. That, my friend, has a deeper root in the corruption of the fundamental laws of the land, which is what we call the Constitution, than it has to do with people's misfortune with poverty and other issues that we've seen. But ladies and gentlemen, my name is Leo Nupolu Johnson, and I came to you live from the beautiful city of Hamilton in Ontario, Canada, on this edition of the Liberian Dream. Have yourself a beautiful week and happy Canadian Thanksgiving wherever you are in the world. See you later. See you in 2 weeks.
We are Liberians.